Every modern street camera is a fully networked computer capable of processing and transmitting high-definition data globally in real time. India's surveillance market is expanding rapidly alongside its urban centers, reaching an estimated valuation of over $7 billion. In 2021, the Indian government made a startling disclosure to its parliament. Over 1 million cameras manufactured by Chinese companies were actively monitoring Indian government institutions. Security agencies and cybersecurity officials flagged severe risks with this hardware. They warned that the devices harbored vulnerabilities that could allow unauthorized remote access, quietly routing sensitive video data to servers located outside the country. When millions of devices can record and transmit data from airports, government buildings, and transport hubs, ordinary civic infrastructure becomes a massive national security liability. In 2020, military clashes along the border between India and China escalated geopolitical tensions, accelerating New Delhi's push to secure its digital and physical borders. Similar fears were echoing globally. The United States and the UK had already restricted Chinese cameras on national security grounds, and recent supply chain attacks, like the remote detonation of pagers in Lebanon, highlighted the dangers of compromised hardware. India faced an economic trap. Enacting a direct, named embargo on Chinese technology risks severe trade blowback and financial retaliation. The government needed a way to block these devices without officially firing a shot in a trade war. They found their solution in a strict bureaucratic requirement. Starting April 1, 2026, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology enforces a new rule. Every internet-connected CCTV camera sold in the country must pass an essential requirement certification. The text of the legislation never mentions China. It simply creates an incredibly high standard for supply chain transparency. First, manufacturers must officially declare the origin of their system-on-chip, the core microchip housing the processor and memory. Devices are then physically tested in government labs, proving the firmware has zero backdoors for unauthorized remote access. By strictly enforcing these lab audits and component disclosures, the government effectively set up an impenetrable embargo against manufacturers reliant on Chinese supply chains. Until recently, Chinese giants like Hikvision and Dahua controlled roughly a third of India's entire surveillance market. Hikvision even built a massive domestic factory capable of producing 2 million cameras every month. That massive facility was denied certification because it relied on Chinese internal components. To stay operational, the company was forced into a joint venture and had to strip its supply line of Chinese ties. This area chart illustrates the collapse of Dahua, previously the second-largest player in the country. Their business contracted by 80%, dropping below the digital certification threshold and leaving them to sell obsolete analog cameras. Major smartphone brands like Xiaomi also abandoned the smart home camera market altogether after failing to clear the stringent lab audits. Dominating global hardware sales no longer guarantees access to the Indian market. Access now requires total control over where the underlying silicon is manufactured. The government announced these rules in April 2024, providing a 2-year transition window. Domestic Indian brands like CP+, Prama, and Matrix used that time to adapt. They rewired their supply lines, replacing Chinese parts with Taiwanese and American chipsets, and writing their own localized, compliant firmware. The market inverted. Chinese brands dropped from a third of the market to near zero, while Indian companies surged from a 25% share to dominating over 80% of all sales. By enforcing strict cybersecurity standards, the government engineered a multi-billion-dollar boom for domestic hardware manufacturers. Securing components from Taiwanese foundries and American suppliers is vastly more expensive than procuring heavily subsidized Chinese alternatives. Compounding this issue, ongoing global shortages in memory and processors are straining the new supply chains, driving up the fundamental bill of materials for manufacturers. Those costs pass directly to the buyer. Consumers and businesses are now absorbing a 15 to 20% price hike for mid- and high-end certified CCTV cameras. India's new April 1st certification rule shows that decoupling critical tech infrastructure from foreign adversaries is highly effective. State-level digital security is achievable, but it comes with a mandatory premium for the consumer.